Virginia, 1862. On a crisp, clear morning, the air hangs heavy with an unnatural silence. A line of blue-clad Union troops waits. They are young men, some barely out of boyhood, standing in what appears to be a perfect formation. But a palpable tension hums in the air. Suddenly, a distant thud tears through the quiet, and a puff of grey smoke blossoms on the horizon. A split second later, the world seems to rupture in a deafening concussion that shakes the very ground. Men vanish, ripped from their places in the line. Limbs and rifles are thrown skyward, a gruesome spectacle against the blue sky. The culprit was a single smoothbore cannon, a weapon both sides referred to with a grim reverence as the Napoleon. It was not the newest, long estranged, or most technologically advanced piece of artillery, but it dominated every field it rolled onto. This is the story of how a 1,200-pound bronze cannon became the most feared and devastating voice on the battlefields of the American Civil War, and what it meant to confront the raw, unadulterated power it unleashed. Here was a weapon that could fire for distinct types of ammunition, be reloaded in under a minute, and project a cone of destruction that could sweep across a field. For the soldiers of the Civil War, this gun was not merely heard. Its concussive force was felt deep in the bones, a vibration that rattled the soul if it did not rip the bones from the body first. This was not just a machine. It was an instrument of absolute, visceral terror. A new kind of war, a new kind of gun. At the outbreak of war in 1861, American artillery parks were a logistical quagmire. They were more akin to military museums than modern arsenals, cluttered with a bewildering array of calibers and guns from different eras, each with its own ammunition requirements. Commanders desperately needed a unified, reliable workhorse, a single, versatile gun that could support cavalry, keep pace with infantry, and possess the power to turn a fortified line into splinters. The solution came from an American-manufactured version of a French design, named for Emperor Napoleon III. The Model 1857 was an elegant and powerful 12-pounder smoothbore, cast in bronze. This material choice was practical. Bronze resisted rust and was durable enough to withstand the immense recoil of its charge, which fired projectiles at over 1,400 feet per second. The gun's tube weighed just over 1,200 pounds, striking a crucial balance. It was light enough to be rapidly deployed by a 6-horse team, yet heavy enough to provide a stable firing platform. Recognizing its superior design, both the Union and Confederate armies placed orders by the hundreds. Factories on both sides worked day and night, ultimately producing over 1,600 Napoleons. It quickly became the definitive artillery piece of the conflict, a testament to its brutal efficiency and adaptability. A versatile arsenal, the Napoleon's effectiveness stemmed from its versatile family of projectiles, each designed for a specific purpose. The first was the solid shot, a heavy, round iron ball designed to smash fortifications, tear through earthworks, or, most terrifyingly, scythe through dense columns of men. It did not explode. It pulverized everything in its path, leaving a horrifying trail of destruction. Next was the explosive shell, a hollow iron sphere filled with black powder and a timed fuse. Designed to burst over enemy formations, it showered jagged, red-hot iron fragments down upon exposed soldiers. The psychological impact of these air-bursting projectiles was immense, as men could be struck down from above without warning. Then came spherical case, which soldiers often called shrapnel. This was also a hollow shell, but it was filled with dozens of musket balls packed around a small bursting charge. When it detonated, it unleashed these projectiles in a wide, deadly cone, effectively transforming the cannon into a long-range shotgun intended to decimate infantry lines. But the projectile that earned the Napoleon its most chilling reputation was the canister. This was a simple tin canister filled with 27 large iron balls. When fired, the can disintegrated, unleashing its contents in a single, devastating blast. At 300 yards, canister could shred trees. At point-blank range, it annihilated human beings. One Confederate surgeon, after witnessing its effects, wrote with grim brevity, "We did not bury bodies, we buried pieces." Artillerymen called canister the last argument of kings for final, devastating statement in any engagement. The wounds were catastrophic, resulting in immediate death or horrific mutilation, leaving survivors with memories that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Antietam, a harvest of death, September 17, 1862, remains the single bloodiest day in American history. In a field of green cornstalks, soon to be stained crimson, Union Captain John H. Kimbrow's Napoleon battery unlimbered, just 150 yards from the Confederate lines, a terrifyingly close range. In under 5 minutes, his men fired 9 rounds of canister. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Confederate General D.H. Hill reported that lanes had been cut through his brigades. These were not metaphorical. They were gaps literally carved out of human formations by hundreds of iron balls. Survivors described the sound as being like a giant ripping canvas. In the aftermath of the volleys, a profound hush would fall, a silence so deep that men could no longer hear the bugles over the ringing in their ears. By sunset, 23,000 men were dead or wounded, a testament to the brutal power of massed artillery. The trauma of that day, the sights and sounds of carnage, would remain with the survivors for a lifetime. On July 3, 1863, the third day of the Battle of Gettysburg, the fate of the nation hung in the balance. Nearly 170 Napoleons from both armies were positioned along Seminary and Cemetery ridges. At 1 p.m., the ground began to tremble as approximately 150 Confederate guns opened the largest cannonade ever witnessed in North America. It was an inferno of sound and smoke that vibrated through every soldier's chest. In response, the Union's cool-headed artillery chief, General Henry Hunt, ordered a disciplined counterfire before telling his crews to cease and conserve ammunition. Then, the decisive moment arrived. Roughly 12,000 Confederates, under the command of General Pickett, began their mile-long march across open ground, directly toward the Union center. Awaiting them were Hunt's Napoleons, now loaded with double canister. Each gun fired not just 1, but 2 canister rounds per volley. A survivor described the air as being alive with whizzing bees, each one with a deadly sting. These iron projectiles tore through the charging lines, creating an almost impenetrable curtain of death. In less than an hour, the assault dissolved into a bloody and futile retreat. Over 7,000 Confederate soldiers fell. Lee's great gamble had failed, and the war's momentum had irrevocably shifted. The Napoleon had not just defended a ridge, it had altered the course of history. Behind the statistics of battle lies a deep human cost. Post-war pension files, soldiers' letters, and asylum records reveal compelling evidence of what is now recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). Civil War veterans describe symptoms including flashbacks, chronic nightmares, uncontrollable rage, and a pervasive sense of dread a full century before the term PTSD existed. One Ohio private wrote to his sister, "I hear the guns in every thunderstorm. I see the pieces when I close my eyes." His words paint a vivid picture of a mind seared by the sounds and sights of battle. Hospital records describe men who, years after the war, could not sleep unless they clutched a piece of artillery wood attacked or connection to the very weapon that had shattered their world. These were deep, invisible scars. Victorian ideals of masculinity often prevented soldiers from speaking of this trauma, leaving them to suffer in silence, their psychological wounds largely unrecognized and untreated. In many ways, the Napoleon was the workhorse of the artillery park. It was simple, utterly reliable, and could often be repaired with basic tools. This robust design meant a well-drilled crew of 9 men could achieve a blistering rate of fire, discharging around approximately every minute. Union forces prized the Napoleon for its mobility on the attack, while Confederate forces valued it for its defensive power, using canister to repel infantry charges. When the Union blockade caused bronze shortages in the South, Confederate foundries resorted to melting down church bells from across the nation. The metal was the same, and its destructive power remained unchanged. By the war's end, it was not uncommon for both armies to use identical, often captured, Napoleon tubes against each other. In its brutal impartiality, the gun respected only the skill of the gunners who served it. Legacy of bronze. After the surrender at Appomattox, hundreds of Napoleons fell silent. Their bronze barrels, now oxidized to a distinctive green patina, were installed on courthouse lawns, at cemetery gates, and in town squares across the reunited nation. They transformed from instruments of war into solemn monuments. Veterans passing these familiar cannons would often reach out to touch the cool metal, a gesture of remembrance for the profound impact these machines had on their lives. The tactics. The Napoleon made common-massed artillery barrages, close-range canister defense, and mobile field batteries became foundational principles of military doctrine for generations to come. Even today, the concussive boom from a replica Napoleon at a historical reenactment is a startling reminder of its power. The cannon did not just become a museum piece. It became an icon, a powerful symbol of the Civil War and the immense human cost of the conflict. The M1857 Napoleon did more than win battles. It carved its signature in smoke and blood across an entire generation. It turned peaceful fields into scenes of slaughter and left behind survivors who would never forget the sound of canister in flight. The Napoleon was not celebrated for its novelty or advanced technology. It was revered and feared because it was ruthlessly effective. In the chaos of America's bloodiest war, this 1,200-pound bronze cannon earned its title, the undisputed king of the battlefield. Its legacy is found not only in the battles it decided, but in the profound and often invisible scars it left upon the nation. If you would like to see more stories from history, please consider subscribing to our channel and enabling notifications. More content exploring the weapons, tactics, and people who shaped our world is always on the way.